Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're dusting off our history books, plunging into one of history's most ambitious yet, well, disastrous military campaigns, the Mongol invasions of Japan.
That's right, a fascinating chapter.
Yep, we're talking about the Bunei and Koan campaigns. This is where Kublai Khan, fresh off conquering basically half the known world, decided, hey, let's add Japan to the empire. What could possibly go wrong?
Famous last words, almost.
Exactly. Spoiler alert. A lot went wrong. Think typhoons, really bad timing, and samurai who were, let's just say, absolutely not in the mood for visitors.
Definitely not rolling out the welcome mat.
Think of it as history's version of that unwanted house guest who never even makes it through the front door. We're going to unpack this fascinating period, digging into the ambition, the incredible resistance, and the unexpected twists that shaped the fate of empires.
And we'll explore Kublai Khan's grand vision, absolutely, but also the steadfast defiance of Japan and how crucial things like geography and, well, weather played these pivotal roles. You'll see how all these multiple perspectives from the Mongol court to the Japanese shogunate kind of weave together into this epic clash.
Okay, let's set the scene. We're deep in the 13th century. The Mongol Empire is just this unstoppable force reshaping the world map. And our story really kicks off with Kublai Khan, who becomes the fifth great Khan in 1260. What was his main focus then? Where did Japan fit in?
Well, his primary objective, his absolute main goal at this time was the conquest of southern Song China. That was the big prize remaining.
Right.
But he saw Japan as strategically important. This view was partly shaped by advice from Goryeo, Korea officials, that described Japan as a well-governed neighbor, possibly implying it was ripe for inclusion or at least valuable.
So, a potential asset, even while dealing with China. Okay, so Kublai sends his first diplomatic message in 1268, a letter basically saying, let's be friends, but maybe more than friends. I don't want to use force, but think carefully. How did Japan react to this polite but pretty firm request?
Japan, which was under the Kamakura shogunate, specifically the very young regent Hojo Tokimune, he was only 18, they chose to just ignore it. Completely. Total silence. It wasn't ignorance, though. They were wary. They'd heard about Mongol power from southern Song refugees. Tokimune immediately started strengthening coastal defenses and, interestingly, ordered prayers across the country for national protection, a clear sign they weren't interested in becoming friends.
Okay, so ignoring the most powerful ruler on earth probably wasn't going to go over well. Kublai kept trying, though, right? Sent more envoys.
He did. 6 times in total, apparently. Each time met with silence from Japan. And with each unanswered message, Kublai got more and more insulted.
I can imagine.
By 1273, he had achieved a major victory against southern Song at Xiangyang-Fencheng. This massive siege was over, securing his rear flank. His patience with Japan was gone. He felt deeply insulted, and the decision was made.
Invade.
Yeah.
So the talking stops. October 1274, the first invasion force, the Mongol Goryeo allies, launched the Bunei campaign. How did that initial invasion go?
They hit the remote islands first, Tsushima and Iki, and apparently it caused a lot of devastation there. But when they reached Hakata Bay on Kyushu, the main target, they met, well, much stiffer Japanese resistance than they expected.
The samurai put up a fight.
They certainly did. Fierce fighting. The Allied forces actually decided to withdraw less than a month later, starting their pullback on October 21st. It wasn't the quick victory they'd hoped for.
And here's where things get really dramatic, right? As they're leaving.
Exactly. As they were retreating, they ran straight into a powerful storm, a huge storm. It absolutely battered their fleet. They lost a massive number of ships and troops, probably more to the weather than to the Japanese fighting.
Wow. So a major setback. But did it deter Kublai?
Quite the opposite, it seems. This unexpected defeat, partly weather-related, just seemed to harden his resolve. He was determined to try again, this time with an even bigger, more overwhelming force.
Undeterred is putting it mildly. So 1275, he's already planning round 2. He sends new envoys, this time with explicit demands for submission. How did that go?
Well, this time the envoys, Leibujiro and Dushizong, actually made it to Kamakura. But Hojo Tokimune wasn't playing games. He suspected they were spies, maybe rightly so, maybe not, but he had them executed.
Executed. Wow, that's bold.
Incredibly bold and incredibly provocative. Executing envoys was a major violation of diplomatic norms even then. It basically poured gasoline on Kublai's already burning anger. Any slim chance of a peaceful resolution was gone.
Okay, so Japan is digging in its heels extremely forcefully. Meanwhile, Kublai still got the main business of conquering southern Song China, which finally falls in 1279. Did that huge victory immediately free him up to focus on Japan?
Not immediately. While that massive campaign was wrapping up, he did consult his minister, Yaratsugu Ryo. And Yaratsugu actually advised caution, saying, the troops are exhausted, the empire's resources are strained after this long war.
Sensible advice.
And Kublai listened, actually. He postponed the Japan invasion for a few years. But here's a fascinating twist. Once Southern Song was completely subdued, some of its former officials, now working for Kublai, started urging him to invade Japan.
Really? Why would they do that?
It's debated. Maybe they saw personal opportunity. Maybe they wanted to divert Mongol attention outwards. Whatever the reason, the push was renewed.
So with Southern Song conquered, Kublai fully commits to the second invasion plan. But the preparations themselves sounded like a massive strain on the empire.
Oh, immense. The sheer scale of shipbuilding was staggering. 600 ships ordered from the newly conquered Southern Song areas, timber from Jeju Island, 3,000 loads of it, another 900 ships from Goryeo.
Just the logistics sound crippling.
It was. People were exhausted, resources depleted. There were widespread complaints from officials about the burden. Kublai even had to cancel some ship orders. Morale among the conscripted workers and soldiers was reportedly very low. Even King Chenyel of Goryeo, his ally, expressed concerns about how futile and costly this whole distant expedition seemed.
And amidst all this, Kublai finally finds out his envoys were executed years earlier.
Right.
How did Japan use this time? They knew another invasion was inevitable.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. The Japanese under Tokumun were incredibly busy. They learned from the first invasion. Their biggest project, building these massive stone walls, the Burui, all along Hakata Bay.
The ones you mentioned earlier. How big were they?
We're talking up to 2 meters wide, 3 meters high in places, stretching for kilometers. Formidable defenses. You can still see parts of them today. They also totally revamped their defense command in Kyushu, centralizing it under the Hojo clan for a unified response. And they got strategic, maybe even spiritual advice from a Zen monk from Southern Song, Mugaku Sogen. The phrase Bakutoku Zenshin, sort of straight-ahead progress, became symbolic of their resolve. They were ready.
Okay, so 1281 arrives. The second invasion, the Kunyin campaign, finally launches. And the scale this time is just huge.
Mind-bogglingly huge. It was a two-pronged attack. You had the Eastern Route Army, about 30,000 Mongol, Chinese, Goryeo troops from Korea, and then the Jiangnan Army from southern China, primarily former Song soldiers, maybe 100,000 of them.
So 140,000, 150,000 troops total. That's enormous for the 13th century.
One of the largest amphibious invasions in history up to that point. Just a colossal force.
And isn't there something odd about their supplies? Not just weapons.
That's right. And it's quite telling. They brought farming tools and seeds. Research suggests many in that huge Jiangnan army weren't just soldiers, but were intended as settlers, migrants.
Wow. So conquer and colonize in one go.
Exactly. It seems Kublai planned to relocate huge numbers of his potentially troublesome former Song soldiers to Japan. Solves a supply problem, prevents rebellion back home.
Yeah.
It's a pretty ruthless piece of statecraft.
Okay, so the Eastern Route Army lands first, hits Tsushima and Iki again.
Yeah.
Then they get word the main Japanese army has moved from Dazaifu. What do?
Well, the original plan was to wait and link up with the massive Jiangnan army coming from the south. But the eastern commanders saw an opportunity. They decided to strike Dazaifu immediately, hoping to catch the Japanese off guard. They even asked Kublai for permission to deviate and make decisions on the fly.
Bold move. But when they got to Hakata Bay...
They ran smack into those Burui walls. Reports say the commanders were stunned. What is that? The Japanese built such a thing. They realized a direct landing against those walls would be a slaughter.
So Plan B...
Plan B was to find anchorage elsewhere. They moved to Shikanoshima, a nearby island. But even there, they weren't safe.
What happened?
The Japanese launched night attacks, small boats, raiding parties. They hit the Mongol fleet hard, causing losses, disrupting them. It forced the Eastern Army to pull back again, this time to Ikeshima, just to wait for the Jiangnan Army.
And the Jiangnan Army was delayed too.
Yes, they had decided Hirado Island was a better rendezvous point, causing even more confusion and delay communicating the change. The whole coordination seemed messy. Weeks were ticking by.
So after all these delays, the two huge fleets finally meet up at Hirado in early July, then move to Takashima. But the Japanese kept up the pressure.
They did. More proactive night attacks on the combined fleet off Takashima, July 27th, 28th. They were constantly harassing the Mongols, causing damage, keeping them off balance. The stage was set for a massive battle. But then something else happened.
The moment everyone remembers. July 30th, 1281.
The Kamikaze. A truly violent typhoon swept down on the fleet anchored off Takashima. Utter devastation. Ships smashed against each other, against the coast. Thousands sank.
How bad was it?
One account claims only 200 ships survived out of 4,000. Japanese records describe seas choked with wreckage and bodies. Archaeological finds confirm the Jiangnan Army's southern Song ships suffered the worst pottery from that region as commonly found in the wrecks. Just unimaginable destruction.
So, the divine wind, was it seen purely as a miracle at the time?
It certainly became legendary as divine intervention, but it's worth remembering the Mongols had been hanging around Kyushu for about 3 months, right in the middle of typhoon season. These storms are, a known hazard in that region during summer.
So terrible luck and perhaps poor planning met a predictable weather event.
Pretty much. Devastating, yes. Decisive, absolutely, but not entirely out of the blue, meteorologically speaking. The surviving commanders facing this total catastrophe really had no choice but to order a retreat, even knowing they'd face Kublai's wrath.
But not everyone got away. Tens of thousands were stranded on Takashima.
That's the grim final chapter. The Japanese conducted a sweeping battle. Between 20,000 and 30,000 Mongols were captured or killed. Local place names there today, like Kubi-no-ki, Nektree, or Jigoku, hell, they still hint at the brutality of what happened.
So, summing up the Kun campaign, a decisive Japanese victory. Was it just the storm?
The storm was the knockout blow, no doubt. But Japan won before that, really. Their defenses, the Burui, were key, their analysis of Mongol tactics, their constant proactive attacks. And the Mongols had issues. Divided command, delays, low morale, especially among the conscripts, general exhaustion. All these factors weakened them significantly before the typhoon hit.
Okay, 2 massive failures. You'd think Kublai might give up on Japan, but no.
He was furious. Reports say he immediately started planning a third invasion, maybe even using his elite Mongol troops this time.
So why didn't it happen? Third time lucky.
Other things got in the way, thankfully for Japan. Kublai launched other costly expeditions, Vietnam, Java, which also didn't go well, facing similar problems like terrain and storms. And crucially, a major rebellion broke out in 1287, led by Prince Nayan in the east.
A rebellion fueled by the cost of the Japan plans.
Partly, yes. The strain was immense. Kublai had to divert his main forces to deal with that internal threat. That took precedence.
And then Kublai Khan died in 1294. His personal obsession with Japan died with him.
It seems so. His successor, Timur, took a very different path. No third invasion. Instead, in 1295, he sent envoys, including a Zen monk named Ikoku Ichi, looking to establish trade relations.
How did Japan respond to that? Still suspicious.
Very suspicious. They actually detained Ikoku Ichi, suspecting him of being a spy. But ironically, he ended up becoming a highly respected Zen master in Japan, fostering significant cultural exchange. A strange, peaceful outcome from a tense situation.
So looking back, these invasions had huge long-term consequences, didn't they? Even for the victors. Let's start with Japan.
Yeah, victory wasn't all positive for Japan. The Kamakura shogunate couldn't reward its samurai vassals, the Gokunin, with new lands or spoils because there weren't any. This led to huge resentment, land disputes, massive debt among the warrior class who'd fought so hard.
So the system broke down.
Pretty much. Debt cancellation orders helped briefly but eroded trust. This widespread dissatisfaction among the samurai was a major factor in the eventual downfall of the Kamakura shogunate in 1333. The cost of defense ultimately undermined the regime.
And what about Goryeo, Korea? Caught in the middle.
They suffered terribly, being forced to be the staging ground, providing ships, supplies, troops. It devastated their economy and national strength. It left them weak and vulnerable, contributing to their decline and making them targets for Japanese pirates, the Woku, later on.
And finally, the Mongol Empire itself.
Oh.
These failed expeditions must have had an impact.
Absolutely. Kublai's relentless overseas campaigns, Japan included, were incredibly expensive in money and lives. They fueled domestic unrest and rebellions like Nayan's. After Kublai died, the empire, already strained, started to fragment more visibly. The different Khanates asserted more independence. It really marked the end of the Mongols' major expansion phase. The dream of conquering Japan, ironically, helped weaken the empire itself.
What a story. Ambition, defiance, nature's fury. It has it all. If you enjoy journeys like this into the twists of history, be sure to follow, share, and invite others along for future episodes.
There's always more to uncover.
And of course, all made listenable thanks to our producer, FireflyHaku, who wrangles chaos better than a kamikaze storm.
Indeed.
Thanks for listening. Come back next time and bring a friend.